Hey everyone, it is Ellen Teresa from Advocate of Soul. And as many of you know who have tuned into my YouTube channel, I love to hear the human story. I love to hear the human journey. And I love to see what messages people have for our planet. And as we all know, our planet is in quite a shifting mode, changing mode. It's flipping topsy-turvy all over the place to bring us home to ourselves, to the realization of who we are. And I'm just so excited to have my next guest on because I've been following her for a little bit on Instagram. And we were talking beforehand, weren't we, Rebecca, about how we meet people on Instagram. And it's like, oh my gosh, like, you find somebody and you're like, okay, I like what they're bringing through. And this is why I brought Rebecca Keating on here. I believe I said your name correctly. Um, and she has written a book called The Ultimate Guide to Shamanism, which we'll learn about a little bit later. She's also been initiated into the Q'ero tradition, which is shamans who are just like really changing the planet, who have an ability to really shift things and focus in on our energies. And there's just a lot with her, from quantum healing to water plasma to everything that you can hear in this circle. And so I'm just really glad to have you on here, Rebecca, today with us.
Thank you so much for having me. I've been very excited to be on this podcast for a long time since we planned it, and I'm just happy to be here.
So let me ask you a question. So our world is kind of crazy right now. It can feel that way. And what drew you ultimately into shamanism as a way to walk out your path here on the planet?
So I was in my first year of nursing school years ago, and I was dealing with a lot of personal traumas. And that led me into a bookstore. And that bookstore led me to a book called Eastern Body, Western Mind. And it was just a book on energy and the chakras and kind of psychology. And that was kind of the very start of my journey where I realized that we are way more than what we've been told, that I was going into the wrong profession, and that I knew I would work with energy. And that journey of healing led me into shamanic work. And it was really about, in the beginning, it was about healing myself. I wanted to heal, and I found the path of shamanism, and that's what really was the most transformative path for me.
Now, did you have any spiritual upbringing before that? Like, like, what'd that look like? Because that's interesting, just to walk into a bookstore and suddenly be like, oh, I'm drawn to this book. And what happened?
Yeah, and it was at a time where like energy healing was never talked about in any circles. It was
Of
completely
course.
woo-woo, like it wasn't a thing, right? But I was brought up in a religious household. My mom was very Christian and my dad was very Catholic. So I went to Catholic school, and it was more about religion in my upbringing. And I kind of like threw that out the door as soon as I was old enough to throw it out the door.
Did you question it when you were a child, when you were hearing
Yeah.
all really?
I did. I just didn't like it. Like it just didn't feel good in my body. It was the dogma around it. I can't remember it in great depth. All I can remember is it wasn't me. It didn't feel like it was me. And as soon as I was old enough to say, I did.
So even the messages around Jesus, I mean, this seems to be a big topic right now in America, Jesus and Christian nationalism and all of this stuff. Even those good, beautiful stories around Jesus didn't have an effect.
So that was the one thing, like I always felt like I was connected to Christ. I always felt like there was a resonance there, but I kind of like I was very, I didn't want to have anything to do with prayer or God until I started going into shamanism. That brought me back to prayer, and the connection
Hmm.
to a higher power. But there was probably, in my teen years where I was sort of like disconnected, but I was actually exploring more of the spiritual world. In like, I was very drawn to Egyptian, I was drawn to, but I didn't know why. So I was kind of always exploring and open, but I didn't really know exactly, like what I was drawn to. And I always say, because my mom was a born again Christian
Yeah, I
when
was
I
going to
was
ask you.
Yeah, when I was in the womb, and I did this exercise a couple years ago where part of something I was learning was about finding out what our mother was doing while we were in the womb. So I asked my mom because it was really significant as well in my natal chart, and it is for everybody. But she said, literally, I was a born again Christian. I was reading the Bible with your Auntie Carrie, and we were praying all the time. Like literally, that was my, everything was peaceful. I wasn't working, everything was good in life, and I was just praying and and reading scriptures. And I thought it was so interesting because over the years I have found myself during certain time periods, like usually when I'm lying in bed or I'm in meditation, and these scriptures will like literally start coming. Some of them are like, I don't even think that's in the Bible, but some of them I think, well, that seems like that would be in the Bible. Some of them I don't know where they're from, but I would imagine some of that comes from being in the womb.
So you didn't study it yourself then, but as a child, you did go to church, you did those things. And
I did, yeah. So whatever I learned as a child, I would have studied, but I don't feel I retained any of it, like at all, really. But I
what a
have
blessing.
I
What a
know,
blessing, honestly. I'm sorry, go ahead.
I know, I feel like I've looked now I'm like my eyes are open and I'm observing the story, the script, and I'm kind of seeing what just seems like absolute BS and what makes sense.
So you said that there were some traumatic incidences that happened in your life, and you can elaborate on them if you want to, or you don't have to, but it was what led you to go into this bookstore, to look deeper, to question certain things. Would you mind just unpacking that for a little bit, what it looked like with your mindsets at the time and your emotional state when you were doing that?
Yeah, I was in nursing school. I was doing drugs. I was
Okay.
partying. You
Mm-hmm.
know, I was dealing with anxiety. I was dealing with a lot of emotional issues and depression. And at that point, I just didn't understand, like, like my father had passed away. That was one of the traumas. Um, and then later on, I also lost my two brothers. I lost them all to addiction. So, but at the time it was just my father. So I was dealing with the trauma of that and, life in general growing up. And basically, when I started learning about energy and how, we bring in, we have energies, like even not even from this life, but from other lifetimes. And we come in with, we come in with this stuff. You believe in that, I do. But,
Mm-hmm.
we come in with this package of things already there. Plus we're playing out all these patterns and what's happening in this life. And that made me have sort of like a template for how I could heal, because if I could understand it, why it's there, then I can heal that, with energy and with practices and prayer and things like that. So that's what it brought into my life initially, I would say.
Why shamanism?
You know, shamanism, it was so interesting. I'm trying to remember the exact point. I first started reading books. First, it started with books, and then it started with this one male shaman who I talk about often. What was the first shaman I learned from? He's passed away now. He was an old guy. And he was talking in 2012 when I actually, no, I met him in 2010, started learning from him, met him in 2012. And back then, he was talking about everything that happened in 2020. He was talking about all the things that would happen, who was involved, who the players were. He was teaching this. He had already been talking about it for years. And so that was my first shaman that I learned from. So I was pretty open to everything. Of course, it all played out and still is
Sure.
playing.
Yeah. Yeah.
So he was correct, but that was way before the time. And we actually thought all that was going to happen in 2012, and it didn't happen in 2012. So my sister even quit her job because she thought the end of the world was coming. Like, it was
Wow.
crazy.
Wow.
Yeah. So we were pretty convinced, but I learned from him. And then I remember I was nursing. I was in my nursing job. I was a director of care, and something was like, I wonder if you can find someone, a teacher that's local that you could go learn from. And I was living in Vancouver, BC at the time, and I found a couple of women who there was like three. I found about three people on the internet that were doing this. Maybe it was only two. And anyway, I researched them. I looked into things. They did this in-person initiation and I went to that, and that blew my mind. Just the one little, they had a little thing that they offered. That was really incredible. So I joined their program. It was 3 years. And at first it was just like for my own personal healing. But within my first year of nursing, I started a business. No, within my first year of the shamanic training, sorry,
That's okay.
I started my business, Shaman Sisters, and I quit my nursing career.
You just
Like
quit. You just
I just I just quit, and I ended a relationship because I learned so much about myself. And like one of the big things was about personal power, not in a sense of power that way, but in a sense of like we have a personal power. And that stuck with me, and that taught me how to actually do what is best for me, which meant kind of blowing up my blowing up my life. That sort of blew up my life. And then I started traveling. I went to Guatemala and Peru and all these things. So it was really the catalyst for me to like really step into who I really am. And it was absolutely life changing. That one initial um, choice that I made to do that training.
you spoke on personal power, and I that just resonated. It like jumped off the screen and into me, because this is what we're seeing on the earth, aren't we? We're seeing everybody's personal powers are up for negotiation, and people are either negotiating them and turning them over to something else, such as maybe religion. As you can see, I was raised in Christian fundamentalism, and I have to say that it depleted me of my power. Like I felt like I was always going outside myself, asking for God's power instead of realizing I might have been able to have done something. I mean, I look at it now and I think, gosh, I wasted many years. I could have been doing different things. But you're speaking to personal power, and I want you just to elaborate a little bit more on that. How shamanism helped you expand into your personal power, but you also said how you put yourself first. And this is that fine line, isn't it, with like being a service to the planet, but also being in service to yourself, and what that looks like. So if you could just kind of bridge those worlds, that would be great.
Yeah, so for me it was like I'll give this as like an example and a story. Like when I remember my very first day in this training, they asked, we had to introduce ourselves. And I remember saying like, I've been in a relationship for several years and I know it's not the right relationship, but I'm still in it. I know I should be doing this, but I'm not doing it. And of course, over time I was able to do the things I needed to do, but it was really about learning that, we often allow the people in our lives or the things in our lives, whether that's a religion or whatever, to sort of dictate and control us. Like we get controlled by all kinds of things, whether that's family or religions or the powers that be. They try to dictate and control who we are. But when we actually like step into our own sovereignty, our own being, and know what we need, like our heart knows what we need, our soul, our spirit knows what we need. And it might not, and nothing in our environment might disagree with that. It just might be things we have to say, no, this is what I need to do for myself. And it's not like a personal power in an egotistical way. It's more like a soft power, like a soft like knowing of what you're supposed to be doing, where you're supposed to be. Sometimes people they're just run by everything else, like everything else that's going on in their life. So that was the biggest thing, that was the biggest thing that really changed everything for me, was stepping into that personal power.
And it gave you permission to do that too, didn't it? Like shamanism said, you have permission to be who you were created to be.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And like for me now, it just seems like, well, obvious, that's an obvious.
Right.
But for back then, who I was back then, I was like just a fearful person. Like I was
Mm-hmm.
afraid of literally everything. I would have been afraid to speak. I would have been afraid. I'm like my voice was just I had no voice. Like I had no voice. It took me years to reclaim my voice, and it took a lot of traumatic things for me to be able to do that. So back then, it was really a big deal for me to step into that.
I wonder, and I'm not trying to harp here on Christianity, but I am wondering if in the womb, when your mom was praying and she was doing all of these different things, and the dogma of Christianity, there is an evil and a good and a light and dark and right and wrong, and there's all of these things. And I wonder, and I'm just going to throw this out here, since you have a good grasp on energy, whether or not these words that were being spoken, because there could have been prayers that were related to, like, we don't allow the devil to do this, and we, whatever. And I wonder if some of your anxiety that you had came from some of that filtering of the energy of her prayers during the time when you were in the womb.
I wouldn't be surprised. I wouldn't. I like it would make sense and it also would make sense to my journey now, like looking back, because now I'm like, I'm going to talk about this, even though I wasn't really in Christianity, but I feel like I know it, I feel like I understand it in my cells. I can see that it just doesn't make sense.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So
And so what
that
type of practices did you do to that you were taught to just like deal with the anxiety? Because this is a big one right now on the planet.
yeah.
This false evidence appearing real, this fear is like, it seems to be running rampant. Everybody I talk to here in England, there's like all this fear, and it's just like, oh my goodness. So, what were you taught, if I can just ask, different practices to deal with that?
Yeah, we did a lot of different we did a lot of different things that came down to understanding um even just how people like have certain holding patterns in their body. Very like there was a lot of like things that were based on sort of frameworks, and we did shamanic journeys where we would uncover aspects of ourselves and things like that. And we did things like sweat lodges and ceremonies. And um we actually did this one day where it was a dark weekend. We showed up and they were like, "You're going to be in the dark all weekend." And we were like, "What?" Like we
Oh,
were with
wow.
we were with these masks on. And the interesting thing was that by the time we were on the second day, in the afternoon with the mask, I could see the entire room. I could see the chairs, the hall, the where we were going. I had the mask on and I could see. And that was the point of us learning that we can actually see in the dark.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So I would say, though, to answer that question, probably the biggest tool that I learned that I became obsessed with was to learn to deal with anxiety was heart coherence. I took a training. This wasn't. I mean, we did a lot on the heart as well, but I wanted to specifically learn the heart math, heart coherence technique. And I took that training with, it was only for doctors and psychologists and perfect healthcare professionals, the one I took. So I really learned the science of it and how to apply that and read the monitors and stuff. And it's a very that simple practice of breathing through your heart and bringing in gratitude and appreciation. I do it all the time. I talk about it, still talking about it years later. I think, God, this is the one thing of all things that I'm still talking about because it works, and it literally is simple, and it's for anxiety, it's for depression, it's for people who have mental health disorders, or just someone that wants to unlock their DNA, because it does that too. So the heart coherence is, I give it to all my clients, all my students. I'm always sharing it.
Mm-hmm.
I'm always talking about it. Have you
Wow.
heard of it before?
I've Bits and bobs of it I have. I mean, if
Yeah.
you'd like to elaborate on it, it would be great for my audience.
Yeah. So basically, what you do, and this is measured and proven, what happens when you do this, but you basically drop your awareness from your heart, sorry, from your head, and down into the center of your chest, like the heart space, and you slow your breathing down, and you start to imagine that you're actually breathing through your chest. So what you're doing when you're doing that is you're bringing your awareness into your chest, and you're dropping out of your mind, really coming in. And I always tell people they can even like touch the area there where their chest is. And then you continue to breathe and slow your breathing down in that space for a few minutes. And then you start to bring in gratitude and appreciation. So I always ask people to bring in like the memory of a pet or their favorite vacation. Bring yourself back to walking down that beach, and bring your the feeling, or maybe when you got married, like whatever brings that immense amount of joy. And then I tell people to actually feel that and experience that as if it's happening right now. And then you sort of like you feel that, and you allow that to go out into your field. And if you do that for 3 minutes, it completely shifts your energy, your frequency. On the screen, it can be monitored to what it does to, they call it an HRV, heart variability, and that changes. And when you're in that state, you're releasing DHEA, which is the happy anti-aging. I don't like anti-aging, but the youthful hormone, and many other hormones. It alters your DNA, your energy field, and you can't be stressed when you're in that field. That the stress is not there anymore when you're in that field. So that's one of the biggest, simplest practices that I share all the time.
This is so fascinating. Okay, so I do that. I do that already, but I would have never known that I did that. Like I wasn't like practicing that specifically in meditation. I'm now going to go for my mind. I'm going to drop it in my. I don't do that. It's just there is something just naturally that happened. And as you're saying that, I'm thinking, oh my God. In fact, I just did that today. I was imagining this really wonderful place where I was and what happened there, and it was great. And I this overwhelming joy happened, and I could literally feel it go from the bottom of my feet to the top of my head, like the energy shift that happened. And I felt like so just light and just like, okay. So I had no idea. See, I feel like this is why we're having this interview. So
Already doing it.
right, exactly. So this can be done anywhere. This can be
Anywhere.
done on a train, it can be done on a plane, it can be done on any place where you're feeling that kind of discordance that can happen when you're out and about. You can just drop right in. It must get easier and easier and easier over time too.
It does. It does. And to be honest, I was working with someone just the other day who was really dealing with a severe case of not having any emotion felt from trauma. And of course, I took her through this, and she still could not feel any gratitude at all, or nothing. So, what I said to her was, you want to just say thank you in your mind, in your heart, bring thank you, keep saying it. And so instead of feeling, because you can't feel right now, say thank you. Because when you do that, you can actually feel that. And then you keep doing it over time, because what it's going to do, if you have a closed heart, it will open the heart. Over time, it's going to open the heart if you keep doing it. So, and yeah, like this is a superpower for people who do public speaking, or, business people, because when you are in this state, you open up your intuition, you open up your channel, to higher creativity and higher knowledge. It's just like, it's so amazing.
So this so when you went down to Peru, right? And you were studying under the, I'm going to say it here, the Q'ero tradition, right? The Q'ero people.
Wow.
Were they teaching these type of things? The heart and the mind coherent, like were they teaching this?
Well, you know what? In their own way, because
Mm.
one of their biggest teachings, the Q'ero people, is reciprocity, which is basically like today for you, tomorrow for me. And it's like you give before you receive. Like it's all about reciprocity and giving. A lot of their ceremonies are based upon offering and giving from the heart. And actually, I'll share this one experience only because it connects to the heart. Is we went up to this place with the Q'ero. This was probably one of the most incredible experiences where we went to, they took us this lake of enlightenment. We drove for probably 3 hours way up into the Andes mountain. Nothing was around there. Nobody was there at the lake. It was just us, and it was just the most beautiful scenery. And we did a despacho ceremony, which is like we put all kinds of flowers and prayers into this package that we all make with our prayers and intentions. And the purpose of the despacho was for the water. And so we packaged it all up with the shamans and the group that we were with, and we took it down to the water. The main shaman was the one who offered it to the water, like the older one. He's the highest ranking kind of master. And as soon as he dropped it into the water, I literally felt this gush of energy go right into my heart, push me all the way back. And I'm just bawling because of the profound energy that I felt from it. And I was like, that's an instant example of reciprocity. I don't know why it happened like that, but that's how. And I was like, did anyone else feel that? Was I the only one that felt that? I'm like, no, I felt it too. I'm like, okay, I'm not the only one that felt it.
Wow.
Yeah. So reciprocity is, it's a little bit different, but it's still about giving and kindness and gratitude and receiving.
And from the natural world around you too.
Yeah.
Very much about being one. It sounds like we're one with the energy around us of nature and back again. When you said the lake of enlightenment, I immediately thought of the lake of fire, like, from Christianity, but I know it wasn't that. We know we weren't going there, but in one way there was a transfer, right? Like something happened to you that was powerful and profound. And it sounds like it went right and did what needed to be done, even if you don't understand, or you do understand, it doesn't matter. I did I have different thoughts about it now, but I did ayahuasca. I went down and I was, doing ayahuasca, but the one that really affected me the most was cacao. It was more so than even ayahuasca, but I remember, really cacao just was a heart opener for me. And it was a beautiful ceremony. Ayahuasca was interesting. So we'll just leave it at that. But I remember having something very similar where they did that. They had this smoke and they were doing different types of things. And I felt this thing just go right into my heart. And it was just so beautiful. And it was so pure. There was a pureness to it. And there was like no mixture, nothing like that. And it just touched me and it changed me. It transformed me forever. And so like I'm a firm believer in these indigenous type of practices and the way that they do different things. Of course, now everybody maybe shouldn't always do them, but whatever, it's all whatever, it goes with it. So how do you bridge? Okay, so I knew this was one of the questions I really wanted to ask you. So there's a lot right now going out about quantum healing. Everybody's talking about the quantum, getting in the quantum field, all of these things. So how do you bridge shamanism and quantum healing? Or are they kind of like twin sisters together and they actually work in sync with each other?
Yeah, you just answered that. It to me, like what the shamans have always done, they walk between worlds, they see in the dark, they work in the timelines, they have maybe a different language around what they do, but it's basically quantum healing is what they're doing. They're working in the quantum. They have the ability to work in the quantum. So I would say I think maybe the quantum healing is more of a modernized or trendy kind of word for it, for one and the same thing, in the way I see it. Yeah.
And being multidimensional people, being multidimensional beings, we as well can travel between worlds also. Is that fair to say?
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah.
Can you give us an example of where you've done that? Or
if you want to open up that
if you want to open it up,
we can go there. So I've been sharing this for many years. I never talked about this experience because it was just too out there for people to but now I share it more openly, and it gives a sort of an example of the quantum, how we are multidimensional. So this was like a very mystical experience that happened to me. I was 28. I was 28 years old. I was really into, at that time, like David Hawkins. He was like Power versus Force, and he was talking about all these things. And of course, so I understood in a mental way that there's no time and space. I understood that there's no time is not real in my mental capacity, but not as an actual like embodied experience. And I had this experience where I was all of a sudden, this is a wild story. All of a sudden, so I'm in a room. I'm just in like this kitchen with some friends, and basically what happened was the whole reality, the walls, the table, the everything that exists in the physical reality disappeared, and it turned into this mist. Everything was mist. All around me was mist, and it was just me. And there was this chime that went off, and it was like a bell. It was like ding. And every time this chime or bell went off, I would change into a different lifetime. And it was just like life after life after life after life after life. And I remembered them. Like I was like, oh, that's me, but I look a little bit different, but I'm still me. I looked very similar in many of the lives. Sometimes I was older, younger. A couple of very distinct lives stood out. One of them was a medieval life where I was some kind of royalty. I was in a white dress. I was some kind of princess or something. I don't know. It was like very, very clear that one life, very European, very like, I don't know, Scandinavian. And there was other lifetimes, but it was just like, I don't know how long it went on for in real time, but in the experience it felt like it was hours because it was just like boom. And people were around, but they weren't aware obviously of what I was experiencing. It was just like, what are you doing, kind of. They were like, what happened, I was like, oh, nothing. I just like, it was like it happened, but of course they have no idea that the walls have dissolved. So what
Mhm.
happened after that was, for about 2 months, all my gifts were open. All my clairaudience, clairsentience, everything was wide open, probably to 100%. I don't think it could be any more open than it was. And I was like almost to the point of psychosis because everything was like I had a piece of paper and I would be like crying over, like, I would feel love exuding from this piece of paper. So I was like locking myself up in the room, literally being like, I can't be out, because it was like all my timelines were open. Everywhere I went, I would have these overlapping timelines, like maybe schizophrenia. I don't know.
Mm.
So anyway, what ended up happening was after a couple of months, everything kind of settled. It changed me forever. Forever, I never looked at the world the same. Forever, I understood multidimensionality. I was a firm believer that we exist on multiple realities at once. I was way more open, but I wasn't like crazy anymore, and I didn't talk about it for years to really anybody because I don't think back then people would have understood. They would have thought it was nuts. I tried to do past life regression to see if I could initiate that happening again, but
Mhm.
it didn't work for me. It actually didn't work for me. So
Okay, I'm speechless. I'm like, okay. So do you, okay, I'm gonna ask an interesting question because I believe that we can create our realities. But in that moment, you were just sitting, right? In just a kitchen with friends. You were not trying to create anything. You weren't doing
no.
anything. And all of a sudden you were just taken into this space.
Yes, it was a fully spontaneous thing. And I even like talked to this one past life regressionist about it, and apparently this can happen. Like it was just a literal spontaneous thing that happened. And there's no rhyme or reason to it. Like it just happened. And I've read since, like, I can't remember where, but I've read it a couple times. It might even be something someone said was in the Bible, but apparently this mist is something that other like mystics have said comes on in a mystical experience. There's a mist, and it was like fog all around me, like mist all around me. Nothing was there but fog. I was like in blackness and fog. That's it. unless I went into a scene, I kind of went into these different scenes, but the backdrop of everything was missed.
And you don't feel in that situation that your free will was violated at all. I mean,
I
because I know
don't.
some people would feel that. They'd be like, oh
Yeah.
my God, I just bounced into something and I didn't ask for this, like what?
Bounced into something. Well, the interesting thing was too, is that because I was reading the David Hawkins books, I kind of like when I was in it, it was like I knew what was happening. It was like familiar to me. So I wasn't afraid. I wasn't afraid at all. It was like, oh, I'm I'm in the no time. I'm in the no space. How did I get here? I don't know how I got here, but I'm here. Here I am, like I knew. So I wasn't afraid of it at all because you could be afraid. You would think you'd be afraid all of a sudden if your world collapsed. But I was like, I remember not being afraid at all and being like, I know what's happening. I know what this is.
Like a remembrance.
Yeah, like a remembrance. Yeah. Yeah.
I'm still speechless. The host is speechless.
Yeah, so I understand multidimensionality on not just a logical level. Like I know it. Like I can teach it very well because I always share the story now with students to try to for them to try to be able to grasp that this is real, that this is actually the reality. It's just that for whatever reason we have we're in this linear reality, but it's actually not real.
And that's what I was going to ask you. How do you bridge that this isn't real? Because I can touch this, I can touch my ring, I can lift this. How do you explain that to people? Because I've said that to people too. I say, well, this is real. And they look at you like you have like two heads and horns coming out. And you know, how do you teach that?
Yeah, I mean, and I just explained that like, time and space is an illusion, because of the density that we're in, because we're in a lower density. And that when you get to a higher density through shifting frequency, then it dissolves. That's the thing. And that knowing that everything, all those lives that I was able to experience are actually happening in the now. All of them are happening in the now. That's why we have access to past, present, future in the now. We can access it all. So it exists. It's just on a different frequency. They're all on different frequencies. And that's why we don't see ourselves in the future, but it is happening. And that's why we can quantum leap. We can quantum leap because if we can believe it, if we know it and believe it, then it's right there for us. And so I also feel that a lot of things come down to our belief systems and our thought forms. Our thoughts are so powerful. And so switching, our thought forms and also really getting into our belief systems around what's possible. It's almost like me learning personal power. I didn't know what that was before, so I didn't know how to access it. As soon as I knew that it existed and that I could have personal power, my entire life shifted. So when we say, okay, well, that belief system is not serving me, I'm going to try a new belief system on, and I'm going to now go and quantum leap my life. We can do that.
Okay, so now let me play angel's advocate here, not devil's advocate, but let me play angel's advocate. Um, so we've all heard of the law of attraction and we've all heard of manifesting things, and everybody's wanting to manifest things. Okay, so it could be they want to manifest a partner. Maybe some people want to manifest money. Money's a big one. Manifest a perfect job, this, that, and the other. Well, if we can do that, okay, if we can manifest things and we can quantum jump, then why do we not see? Now, here we go. Why do we not see a lot of the things that we're wanting to manifest in our lives? What's blocking us? Because you mentioned belief systems, and I believe that that's key right there. It's very, very critical. But I see it all the time. I see people, oh, you're going to manifest. Okay, some of it's crazy, but like you're going to manifest this, $250,000 thing or whatever like that. So then everybody gathers around it and they're like, okay, the $250,000 thing, but it never happens. It never happens for them. Help.
So the way I see it, because I can manifest, like I'm a manifester in human design. I manifest all the time, but I don't believe in manifestation in my life really so much these days. I don't really actively try to manifest anything because I feel that what happens is that we end up manifesting things that we don't actually want because we think
Yes.
we want this, we think we want millions of dollars, or we think we want a car or whatever, but that's not actually what our soul truly wants. So I'm often more about like actually embodying your soul and getting in touch with your soul connection to really find out what you're meant to be doing, because you can create that way. But the way I see manifestation is that it doesn't work for people because they haven't embodied that energy of what they want. And that's the key to it, is that you have to, like when I wanted to start a jewelry company, you know what I did? I was like, what does it feel like to be a jewelry designer? And I started literally acting, dressing, being in the frequency of what a jewelry designer would be. And before I knew it, I was living that life. So it is about embodying that. Like, not everybody can imagine, say they want to be a billionaire. What does it feel like to be a billionaire? Like, how does a billionaire get up in the morning? you know, because to me that is the key to calling in whatever it is you want. So in my own life, the way I look at it is like, even if I'm working towards a goal and I know that that goal is what I'm meant to be doing, like I've been guided to know that this is like, okay, this is my mission right now, is what I'm being guided to do. Why am I not quite there yet? What still has to happen? And it all comes down to me, who I'm being, what I'm doing, what behaviors, what belief systems, how am I getting up in the morning, how am I going about my day. And what I find is that when we really embody that, like I can shift I can go from feeling tired and sort of bummed out and unmotivated or uninspired to being like, I'm in the gym every day, I'm eating properly, I'm meditating, I'm doing all the things, nothing's bothering me, to just a shift in perspective. That's all it is. And then next thing you know, boom, I have whatever the thing is happening.
Okay, now love me again. Are you manifesting your perspective of what that thing you're wanting is? Because if I were to say, I want to be a billionaire, I don't know what a billionaire feels like in actuality. I really genuinely don't. So it would feel like to me that I would be creating these feelings of what I think it would look like for me. Is that because how do you hit the frequency you're supposed to if you don't really know what it is to begin with?
And that is why a lot of people don't attain it, really, because they're not. But you can do it in incremental steps. And I think probably some of the greatest like teachers out there will say you need to hang around with those people, you need to
Hmm.
study them. If you don't have access to them, study them, learn from them, be in their orbit, be in their vicinity, if that's what you want, because that's exactly it. How do you know? You can think, but how do you tune into a frequency that you've never actually had before? So that's where you have to use your imagination, and also like be around those people or study them.
That's very good wisdom right there. Um, do you believe everybody can have anything they want? Don't
I
you love
mean,
these questions?
I think it's possible to have, I do believe in destiny. I believe that
Hmm.
but I believe we have not just one destiny. We have many destinies. We have a highest destiny. So, but not everything is meant for everybody. So it's kind of, I think a lot of those manifestation people, they kind of pull people in the wrong direction in that sense, because yes, we can manifest and we can create and but is it always what we actually, need? So I think we are capable of doing way more than what we think or are told, but it's a little bit like, I think when people are really pushing the manifestation stuff, I think it goes against a little bit of what I feel is true in that sense. because not everyone's meant to do everything.
Right, right. And so then when it goes back to what you originally said is tune into your own soul,
Yeah.
that your soul knows the best path for you.
Yes.
Now, is the soul your higher self?
I think they are very they're a bit different, but they are within the same like a similar architecture. Like there's different layers, right? There's like the soul, and then there's like the monad, which is kind of like the highest part of yourself,
Mm-hmm.
but they're all connected. They're all connected.
Oh my, Rebecca, I feel like I could talk to you forever. Good. Okay, so I have some questions here that I do want to ask you.
Yeah.
So, you you do soul frequency healing.
Yes.
And now that we've been talking about the soul and we've been talking about different things, what do you mean by that?
So for me, it's a way of working with the soul in the quantum field. And I do like the result of it is like trauma recovery, soul repair, timeline work. A lot of the way that I work is through the physical body, in terms of the body is sort of showing us everything. I find like the body is showing us what's happening, and so is the energy field. And so I go into the field, and I kind of just, I don't look for things, that it just gets shown to me through the body, through the soul. And then usually I'll go into so a timeline or something like that. Sometimes it involves like soul retrieval or just timeline work. Sometimes it involves entities. I do a lot of work with, I mean, I'm seeing people all the time who have entity attachments and possessions and all kinds of stuff. Like it's crazy. The amount of people that I work with that are dealing with that, visibly dealing with it, like you can just see it. And so that's a big part of the work too. It's just like whatever kind of repair the soul needs, to be more embodied. So soul retrieval, like I said, soul repair, timeline work. It Nothing is, I mean, sometimes it's very galactic. I experience all kinds of things in a session. Like it's just wide open. Something new will come in. I've learned a lot about architecture and just consciousness through doing it, because I'm seeing new things all the time in the field.
Now, I've seen you mention on Instagram that there's a lot of like, you don't want to go outside yourself to find things and you don't. So some people who would say that they do soul frequency healing use spirit guides or they use other entities to help them with that. Is that part of what you do, or is that kind of like you're crossing a line and you're thinking, I actually have the power and I don't need I don't need to go out here?
Yeah. So I've never worked with any outside energies. Like my original shamanic teacher was like, spirit guides are just an aspect of you, and uh archangels are, so I just
Mm.
never ever worked with anything else. And I feel makes everything really clean and pure. Um I do work with the Christ energy, and whether people want to call it the creator or mother, father, god, which actually is what feels right for me at this time, because I do feel there is um, an overall creator. There's an overall masculine, feminine energy. So I in my prayer I work with those energies, um, but that's all I work with. That's it, and my highest self, and then the person's highest self as well.
Yes, yes, that makes
Yeah.
sense. So you talk a lot about water. I've been hearing this about plasma and water and all these things. So talk to me. How does water play a role in the transformation of a person, but also like a release of stuff? How does water act as almost kind of like a healer and a deliverer, I guess, at the same time?
So, I mean, water is, something I've always been sort of drawn towards. And then, my last couple trips to Peru, I just started to really connect deeper with water. And the way I see it is that water is like a record keeper. It's like it holds the memory of everything. So past, present, future, like the quantum field, water is like in essence like a quantum field. Like it holds everything. Not only that, but it takes instructions and it can also deliver knowledge. So it can be worked with in that sense. So you said for clearing, I think. So
Mm-hmm.
you can ask and intend for the water to help you with clearing. Like for example, in the bath, you can people are always like, oh, I feel like I have an implant or some kind of dart in me, or someone did something to
Mm-hmm.
me, some negative energy. And I'm like, run a bath, say a prayer, and ask the water to remove everything for you. And it will do that. So water is very intelligent, and I honestly feel that we will discover so much more about water in the coming years, especially with the age of Aquarius, and a lot more understanding of what water is. I think has been really kept hidden from us.
Just thinking I'm pondering in my head here. Don't you love this? You have me quite speechless at points. So it can be that simple. You can sit in a bathtub and you can just say, water, can
Yes.
you just clear out what needs to be cleared out?
Yeah, yeah. And I also have taught that you can, water taught me this. I didn't go looking for this. Water taught me and I started practicing this, and it was like life changing for me, that you can, like, people will travel to, like, these sacred springs. And of course, that's amazing, right? You can touch sacred waters and heal and things like that. But you can also, because water is all connected, all the waters are connected, same within our body. So you can actually call in a body of water that you want to call in, like say the Chalice Wells. That's a famous spring. Well, you must know that. You can
I do.
you,
It's about an hour away from me. Okay, so go ahead.
oh, you're close to it. You can go
Yeah,
there,
I
but
am.
but but you can call in that water into your water. Like if you're in the bath, say, you're just dealing with your city water in the bath, you can call in the Chalice Wells and bring that energy, that frequency of that well into your water. And I like I because water showed me this, like literally water showed me this. And when I started to do it, I was like, wow. And so I actually created like a meditation where I guided people through a meditation where I called in all these different distinct bodies of water from around the world, like the cenotes in Mexico. And so they could experience this. So I did a free master class, shared everything with them that I learned from water, and then I gave them an experience of that. And you can feel it. Like you can actually feel the different frequencies of the water. They have a different energy, a different frequency. So I had so many people, still do, messaging me all the time. They're like, I had the most profound experience with that meditation, feeling the different water, feeling the different energies of the water.
Oh my gosh. Well, now bath taking is going to take on a whole new theme to it, isn't it? Wow, that's
Yeah.
incredible. That's
Yeah.
incredible. But but see, when I was reading about the Q'ero, they were talking a lot about oneness with nature. There was this big theme. There was an overarching theme of like connecting with nature. So we have water here. What else can you connect with? You can connect with trees, you
Yeah.
plants,
Yeah.
all.
The mountains, even the Q'ero, they connect with the Apus, the mountain energies, and they actually see the Apus as like masters.
Mhm.
And it's very interesting, but they work with the mountain energies. And same with the earth, they work with the earth energies, the elements, all the
Mhm.
elements they
Mhm.
connect with. They also know that they came from the stars. So they have always known that they are a star lineage, and that they actually still work with the stars. Um, Yeah, like so they're really connected to it's the natural world around them that they're in harmony with the natural world, which is like so missing
Yes, yes, it is. I know. Oh my gosh, I know. So with like water, can you do the same with a specific type of tree? Can you do the say like can you call in something with a tree or like I look right out where I am now and I can see Dartmoor and Dartmoor are these just it's wild wasteland that's up there and there's stone circles and there's all sorts of things that are around. I mean, can you call the land? Like can you
Yeah,
literally call the rock?
yes.
Hey, I want the rock to
You can. You can. You definitely can. I mean, and shamanic practices would also like that would be in their practices, like because they see all the nature as alive with spirit. You know, it has its own essence of energy. So even like a tree, you know, I remember even in my shamanic training, we were guided to go and sit under a tree or hold a tree, touch a tree and speak to the tree. And you can speak to the trees if you can really tune in and be quiet. And the trees will actually teach you all kinds of things.
Mm-hmm. I've
So
had that before.
yeah, yeah. And the rocks too. I mean, they're alive, you know. I do believe that everything is alive in that sense. Especially the natural world.
So how do you walk grounded every day with the idea that like at any moment everything can disappear because it's an illusion? And then like and then things are talking and chattering. I mean, how do you stay grounded? Because I'm sure that this was like it was a learning curve for you. You had once the gifts come online, once things, take off like that, you have to learn how, I mean, you don't have to let your whole day be. I mean, you are on the ground. You right? Your feet.
Yeah. I love to put my bare feet on the ground. Like I have a backyard and I actually have massive maple trees in my backyard. Like I
Mhm.
love my backyard. I love being in the trees. The trees ground me. I'm kind of in a forest. I'm in a ravine
Mm,
and I
mm.
have a river very close to me. Like I'm so grateful for it. And I like to go in the backyard with my bare feet whenever I can and just feel grounded. And if I start feeling off, because I find lately, I would say in the last 6 months, the energy has gone to a whole other level of like nervous system overload. And, it's all like all of a sudden, whatever it is, the AI or whatever it is, noticing a bit of a disconnect, noticing not feeling as connected as normal. And so, what I do is I amp up my practices, and being out in nature is like sometimes I just say, forget it, I'm done for the day. I'm taking my dog, I'm going to go down to the river.
Mhm, mhm.
I walk the river twice a day, and I go in my backyard and I try to get out in nature as much as I can. And I also, to help myself ground and keep my creativity, I write in the morning. I think it's so important that we do that. Like, write just like one page on a journal. I just write whatever because I notice a change. And then the other thing I like to do is I'll even type out just a free flow writing every morning where I do like a minimum of 500 words. So I'll write my journal and I'll free flow on my laptop, and that just keeps the creativity alive, because I feel like they're really trying to, you know they're trying to get rid of our creativity and our guidance and stuff. So I feel we have to, I mean, I've always done those practices, but now I'm like, I really need to
Mhm.
do those practices. Before they were easy to do, now they're not as easy. So
Right.
I
They're
keep,
almost like a lifeline, aren't they?
it's like yeah, exactly,
Yeah.
it's a lifeline.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Okay, so I have a couple more questions if I can. So, you've written a book
Yes.
called The Ultimate Guide to Shamanism. And in fact, I'm going to be ordering it here soon, but because I want to read it.
Amazing.
I know I'm so drawn to shamanism, but that's
I
for
have it
another
right here.
conversation. Um, there it is, everybody, The Ultimate Guide to Shamanism. So,
Yes.
what is the core message of that book?
So I would say the core message is really about you can bring these practices into your everyday life. Like you don't have to be a shaman. You can bring these earth-based, practical practices into your everyday life in a simple way. It's a how-to book. So it really goes through like ceremony and ritual and energy and the different aspects of the animal world and the nature and a lot of stuff we talked about, and multidimensionality and everything, and how you can ground that into your everyday life so you can live a more, transformational life and have more peace in your life and groundedness.
So there's practical examples, practical activities, practical things we can do in the book.
Yeah, it's a how-to. It's a how-to. I wrote it in 2020. I was actually approached by this is odd, but I was approached by the publisher to write it. I still had to go through a process of publishing and getting approved and submitting a proposal and stuff. But so it was a little bit different than what do people normally do when they write a book. But I ended up writing the book in 2020, and it was always meant to be like an actual how you can do certain practices.
And you said the Q'ero tradition that you learned under too is very practical.
Yeah, they are. Yes. They the nice thing about the Q'ero is that their teachings are like they will openly say these are meant to be shared. These are meant to be shared. You are meant to, they're not closed. Like some traditions are closed, and that's okay. You're not meant to change them or even learn them, maybe. But this tradition is meant to be brought to the West. It's meant to be shared. If you learn it, they openly will say you can teach it and share it, and it's simple. It's nothing like, some of the shamanic things I've learned are just too complicated. Like, this is just easy to move energy and to work with the natural world. And what I love about it is that they want people to have these practices, and they've preserved their teachings because when the Spanish came, they moved up into the Andes Mountains and they weren't found for some time. So they still, they've been a little bit, obviously, they've had some cultural shifts because of Spanish Inquisition, but they were able to maintain a lot of their traditions and practices.
Yeah, I'm very interested. I'm intrigued. I have to say, I probably will be reaching out to you after this just to learn a little bit more. But I've always been drawn to shamanism, and I believe that it goes back to the fact that I have indigenous heritage in my line. There's Cherokee Indian there, and and so I know that there's a drawing towards that for me, and I actually have been feeling like things with that, but that's for a whole other time. Okay, so the last question for you is, what would you say was the biggest breakthrough that you personally have seen in other people's lives in terms of like your clients and the people you work with? The biggest breakthrough that you've seen?
The biggest breakthrough. I don't know if I'm allowed to say this, but I'll say it anyway. I have worked with a couple clients who actually were HIV positive, who are not anymore.
Wow.
That is through a medicine called Cambo. That's a medicine I worked with. That's a jungle medicine actually from Peru. It's not psychedelic or anything. It's a healing medicine.
Yes.
And with those particular clients, yeah, that's something that I've seen. I mean, that is my honest, like, I mean, that was pretty mind blowing to experience that. The other thing that I would say, one other thing, I know I think you're in deep thought.
I am. I'm just thinking it through.
I know, I'm thinking, am I going to get in trouble for saying this? Because, some things you just can't say in this world. But I've seen people like, with very severe psychic attack. Like I'm talking like they were since they were 3 years old, to the point of like their whole life is disrupted, for their whole life. They can't sleep at night, and just the worst of the worst. I won't even say all of it, but I've seen those people recover from that. And I feel like that is a big shift for someone to experience, to actually be able to live their life again. And I've helped several people through that, but one in particular that was really deeply suffering. And, that is something that I'm really passionate about doing, because these people are being, like, their sovereignty has been taken away from them. Like they've been, kind of targeted and things like that. So I've seen a lot of that as well.
Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. There's so many things I could say. But so
Yeah, you've probably
Rebecca.
seen it too.
Yeah, yes. Yes. Where can people find you if they want to reach out to you? How do they do that? If they want to, I don't know, do you do one-to-one clients, obviously, group things? Where can people find you?
I do one-to-one clients. I also teach the soul frequency healer. I teach that, which a lot of that is based on the Andean medicine wheel, like the transformational part of that. We're working with shamanic practices. And then I'm teaching people how to do that work. But the best place to find me, I would say, is probably right now on my Instagram, because I'm switching platforms, but I have a link tree that I can share, and my link tree has all my links to my sessions, my work, and my Instagram, Rebecca LL Keating. They can find me on there as well.
Okay. Rebecca, this was such a joy. I have a bazillion more questions. I've left even with more questions. But I just want to say thank you for doing the work yourself, because I know that part of the shamanic work that you've done was on you first, right? So you learn it for yourself, you walk it out for yourself, and then you're able to deliver the medicine. And I feel like, I just feel like you're such a breath of fresh air, because I've seen the quick shaman, the come see me. And I was, I'm here in like, a day practicing. And I can tell that you've actually had to work it out in your nervous system. You've embodied it. You've allowed it to flow. You're doing it still every day. You're allowing for more and more healing in your life and more things to happen. And so I just want to say thank you for truly just being an example of excellence with the medicine. And that's really important. That integrity piece shines through. And so I will definitely be sending people your way. And thank you for being a guest here on the Advocate of Soul podcast.
Thank you so much for having me. It's a great conversation. I really enjoyed it. So good. Thank you.
All right, everybody, you know where I am, Advocate of Soul podcast on YouTube. The link for this will be coming up tomorrow. It will come out and it'll drop, and you can all watch it. And do reach out to Rebecca, get her book. Hint, hint, I'm getting her book. All right, talk to you later, everybody.